How's it going, everyone? Is that you, Moose, in chat? Calling me a chicken? We'll get started here in a second, no worries. How'd your scrim go, Moose? Did you play? How's it going? Can you see me, Moose? Wow, first stream. This is fun. My name is Ron. On PlayStation, I go by the name of NorCal. This is my first stream. It's been a long time coming. Thank you for coming to this channel. For those that are here. For those that'll see this, this is something I've wanted to do for a long time. Overwatch means a lot to me. The reason I put so much time into Overwatch, it's something, there's so much depth and nuance into it. Growing up as a kid, I had a nickname my friends called me. They called me Noob Cakes. Like, that's what they called me all the time. Just because in Halo and Call of Duty, I was just brain dead. I had no idea what was going on. There wasn't really that much depth to it either. It was, you know, you had to aim or you didn't. It was one of my first games. Then 2.5 years ago, picked up Overwatch for the first time. And it became an obsession. I still have the bad aim. But I picked up some things along the way that no matter if you're starting off brand new into Overwatch, or brand new into Overwatch, or whatchamacallit, you're a GM and you're playing in a tournament, there are some things to know about Overwatch that there's no other guides that I've been able to find. No other guides cover it. They all cover things like, oh, if you do this as Junkrat, you'll easily climb to Grandmaster. That caps off at a certain point. Overwatch ladder and Overwatch as a competitive sport with tournaments plays fundamentally different. The reason why it does is there's a level of Overwatch at the tournament level that once you have 6 players on each team completely together, have all the time in the world to practice and scrim. There's a certain level, and that level is what I call fundamental Overwatch, that it's foundational. Foundational in that there's higher level strategies, like the term often used is called meta, the meta gameplay, which is a reference to like the optimal gameplay. It's the easiest, just based on the game design at the time of the patch. All sorts of different strategies, people that are insane at the game. We have one on our team, several on our team, that the greatest, most insane players in the world. But it is possible still for all those things to be in place and to still lose. And that's one of the things I'm covering here in this guide. Let me just double check the feed here. Make sure I'm not covering anything significant. So what is fundamental Overwatch? This is a discussion. Tonight's stream, what I'm going to do, I'm going to spend no more than 30 minutes covering fundamental Overwatch. What this does, it sets up a discussion for the second part. The second part, I'm going to do 2 VOD reviews. I'm a manager for a team called Honesty. That team, we have three teams. Honesty Impact, Honesty Oblivion, and Honesty Effect. These are the 3 teams we have competing in this coming season of CGL, which is a PS4 tournament, which plays for cash. So we're really stoked. We've been prepping for it. There's been a lot of things on my mind these past few months doing practices and scrims that no matter who's watching, if no one watches it, at least I get these ideas out in the open. Hopefully someone sees it. Someone sees some nuggets of truth. But we'll go ahead and get started. This first part, we'll talk about fundamental Overwatch. We'll guide that into the first VOD review, and then the second one as well. Hopefully it'll all build on each other, and you guys will have a good time. So what is fundamental Overwatch? We talked about it. Pretty much, it's a way of playing Overwatch, knowing some critical aspects of the game. Overwatch, it's different than Modern Warfare. It's different than Fortnite, PUBG. At an elemental level, every hero is the same. It doesn't matter if you are the number 1 ranked player on ladder or you are a brand new player. When you pick a hero like Genji or you pick a hero like Winston or Ryan, you are picking the exact same hero. You can optimize the settings. The player who spends the most time in game has the advantage because he knows more about that hero, knows more about its limits. But at a fundamental level, it's like chess. It's like chess. A rook will only move in one direction. A knight will only go up 1 space, and then to the left 1 space, or to the right 1 space. That's one unique thing about Overwatch, that Overwatch is like chess, and Overwatch is like chess and like tennis. That's the chess portion. The tennis portion, I'll talk in the next part. But when I mean tennis, it's tennis is built like you have game, set, match. You have multiple rounds that you serve. The equivalent in Overwatch is team fights. You have multiple team fights inside one length of payload or one control point, and then winning those control points and payload movements eventually gets to a map. And then in Overwatch tournaments, you have multiple maps. So just that tier of you win team fights win points, points win maps win overall tournament series. That's how Overwatch is like tennis. Another thing to note we'll talk about is every team fight is a 6v6. I know that's not it's not groundbreaking, but that as a fact, as a truth, leads to several implications that themselves are truths that go unrecognized, and we'll talk about those in a second here. An individual's carry potential is mitigated by team coordination. Understanding that first point that I made, how every hero is the same. It doesn't matter who picks that hero. They may have a potential that they know that hero to the highest nth degree. But knowing several things about that, it is easier to counter a hero than for someone to carry, if that makes sense. If a person is the carry and the team devotes all their resources into that person, that is a strategy, but there are ways you can play around that doing small actions. Let me see if I can diagram this. Let me see if I can diagram this. Here. You have this person, which we'll call the carry, right? Their value to the team is like this. This is value on this side. It's a bar graph. And that's their strongest player. A lot of teams will devote, all their attention and resources into propping this person. They'll pocket him and whatnot. But if you have, decent people on this team, that play in an optimal way, that understand the game, who may not be able to carry as much as that person, but do their job, that synergize better together. If they're able to disrupt this person or the logic and the strategy that supports them, this team here will come out on top. It's an abstract concept, but that is a fundamental part of Overwatch. Did that close? No, it didn't. Let me just clear. There we go. Sorry for that. Another way to think about fundamental Overwatch. I apologize. It's a long, drawn out explanation, but and you often hear the term game sense applied to the game of Overwatch. Game sense it's one of those vague words. How do you measure objectively game sense? Game sense, you say, oh, if you died, you didn't have game sense, or if you lost the team fight, even though you did this one action, you didn't have game sense. But that's very vague. There's nothing to measure in that. My substitution for game sense is the term fundamental Overwatch. There are the actions at the team level that the team does. Very specific things the team has to do. Very specific things that if the team doesn't do, it doesn't matter. Anything else doesn't matter. These things that are fundamental Overwatch are easily punished, and are the things that easily lose team fights. And we'll see those later tonight. And then the last bullet, the team that invests their resources most effectively usually wins. Resources we'll get into later, but it's not just abilities. There's other resources out there. We'll go into detail. So why is fundamental Overwatch important if we're talking about winning team fights? The best teams, the most brilliant teams, are not the ones that pull off the most insane plays. For example, the Gladiators last season, in Season 2 of Overwatch League, with their underwater basket weaving strat, leaving Surefour on Brig in Spawn. That was brilliant. It won them the team fight, but they lost to the eventual team that would become the champions, or that were the champions from the season before. Anyways, that's brilliant, but the best teams aren't. Those don't make the best teams because that takes so much time to set up. There's very few opportunities. It may work 1 out of 5 times. In fact, that same night, a team in Korea contenders, saw it play in America. Their time it was in the morning, so that same night they had a what's it called, contenders game, and they tried to pull the same strat, and it didn't work for them because the opponents knew it was coming. So it's brilliant stuff like that isn't what makes teams great. That makes them brilliant. The brilliant teams are the ones that know the efficient ways to win a team fight. They know how to win a team fight before it even starts, if that makes sense. And that's what fundamental Overwatch does. It enables teams to win team fights efficiently, and to, by being knowledgeable about it, avoiding themselves losing winnable fights. So we'll go first to the this first pillar of fundamental Overwatch. Overwatch, it's like playing tennis. Like we talked before. Overwatch is broken up into segments. You have you start off when the timer starts and opens. You have set team fights. Within team fights, you have a definitive winner or loser. And then when you have those team fights, you cap a payload or a capture point, and that continues on into the map. Someone wins the map. The thing is, though, when I say Overwatch is like tennis, the way tennis is scored, there's always a winner or a loser, and that's one of the things I want to impress upon in this part of fundamental Overwatch. Every team fight has a definitive winner and a definitive loser, but not every team fight is the same. I added this diagram here to kind of show what I mean. This is taken from like a election, to demonstrate what gerrymandering is. Gerrymandering, it's an election technique. The way you design districts is gerrymandering. If it's like this, so you have the blue here. This is like a state, for example. If 60% of the state is blue, 40% is red. You divide that. If it was divided evenly, each one of these is like a separate election. So you have these 10 here wins 6-4, wins 6-4, wins 6-4, wins 6-4. That's if everything was equal. If all things were equal, there's more blue here. So blue wins overall. However, if things aren't equal, like we're saying in Overwatch, if not every team fight is equal, you can have the advantage, like in blue. But if you don't apply them in the right time, in the right sequence, in the right areas, you can win the majority of the team fights. You can win, quantitatively wise. Like if there were 10 team fights, you won 6 of them. That's great. That's awesome. That means you won the majority of the team fights. However, if you didn't win the 4 most important team fights, that's what I mean. Overwatch is like tennis. If you don't win the important team fights, it is still possible for the team with the less resources, the less capabilities, to still come out the winner. And like I was saying before, Overwatch is like tennis. Overwatch is like chess. If every team has access to the same heroes, that's both it's a very liberating idea. If you think, for example, like just think of the last time if you play Overwatch, you've been stomped by a team, like any team. You just feel completely powerless. You'll see in one of these videos a scenario like that, where it's just it felt like there's nothing the team can do. If every team has access to the same heroes, it's not like they're unique. It's not like Jeff Kaplan designed them a new hero. You can go that same hero, that same team composition, and you can at least counter them. You can counter them by punishing what's known in Overwatch as cooldowns. Cooldowns are abilities that once used and procced have a cooldown, a time limit before they could be used again. This creates turn-based mechanics. If I use it at this time, then that's an opportunity cost. That means for the next 8 seconds, I hope I better not need to use that ability again, because then I can be punished by it. So very much Overwatch, there's a lot of skill, there's a lot of great plays, but under the engine, there's a lot of ideas and concepts that can be used to punish that goes under the radar. I hope I still have everyone's attention. We're running out of time. Every team fight is a 6v6, and like we were saying before on the last fight, not every team fight is equal. Not every team fight is as important. But the thing is that every team fight is a 6v6, if that makes sense. And what this goes to demonstrate is with staggers. No, I don't need to draw that out. It escapes me how important this concept is. Not every every team fight's a 6v6. Not every 6v6 is created equal. The way to view this, it's a fundamental idea of Overwatch, but it's a fundamental idea, but it can be both punished and leveraged both ways. If you have a pharmacy, for example, that's 2 people in the air, Farah and Mercy, and then you have 4 other people on the ground, and you're the other team. The other team can either focus the pharmacy, that's a 6v2, and then you have, hey Scar, how's it going? I apologize, it's a little bit long of a VOD. I'm just going over some fundamental things. These ideas build on each other. It's kind of dry. But one of the things to focus on is that every team fights a 6v6, can be viewed in here. Oh, you've been here from the beginning. All right, perfect. I get these ideas. I appreciate it. I'm like the worst person to be presenting these things. I'm not the best gamer. I'm not the best gamer. I'm not the most articulate public speaker. I'm not the most outgoing. But I just have these ideas, and I've seen these for 2 years. I've been in the Overwatch scene for 2 years. I've been casting games. I've been coaching teams, leading teams as a captain, and I've seen it time and time again. The easy things get punished the hardest. There's no point in talking about big strats unless you really look at the fundamentals and identify the fundamentals and train the fundamentals. But these ideas keep building. So with every team fight is a 6v6, that means each team fight you have 6 sets of eyes, 6 sets of ears, six brains. This leads to the idea of it's a shared responsibility. Everyone has a limited FOV. I think it's 30 degrees. Everyone can only look in a certain direction at a time. Everyone hears all the call outs, all the things, all the little sounds like the Winston or the Reaper creeping on the flank. And everyone has the ability to contribute. Another thing about team fights, every team fight has a definitive start and a definitive end. Where this can be leveraged and punished is when me and Krace are managers for the team. Me and Krace are managers for the team. We've been going through different coaches. We have this new coach, Moshi. Moshi. He's very great. This is his only second day though, and he'll cover a lot of the deep strats that working the team comps, giving that GM level coaching for the individuals. My focus, what I've been able to observe, are the small things, the things that it doesn't matter, what team comp we run or the situation. There's things that shouldn't happen, right? There's things that, like, I'm showing the two VODs I'm showing are the effect scrim from last week, where they played against the T5 team. I forgot their name. I think it was FAO. The other scrim I'm showing is the impact scrim. Both teams got 5-0'd. The effect team, they got shattered from behind, not once and not twice. It was almost multiple times in a row. Numerous issues. Similar issues for the impact team. So I'm just going through these as it's not so much to I'm glad you're here. If people are listening in, if other people will listen in later, is great. But this is a way for me to get my thoughts across as well, to get organized and to present it as a block of information. So I'm sorry I keep drifting. One of the concepts I was talking about, start and end. There's a definitive start to a fight and a definitive end. And teams that don't realize that get punished by starting an engagement either too early because they're on a flank and they're not sure what their team is doing, or they don't know when the team fight is completely lost. Like if it's like 3v6, you've lost your main tank, your main healer, that by staying there and staggering, the concept of stagger, you're losing further team fights by not even allowing them to happen, by staggering, by not respecting that there's an end to the team fight. Every team fight's either winnable or losable. There are draws in Overwatch, but that I view as either it was a winnable game that was lost because of fundamental Overwatch, or the opposite, the mirror. But what this means is this goes back to that first point. There's a certain point when you go into a team fight, you have to come in with essentially two plans. A plan to win, and then that consideration of, all right, this isn't working. All right, we have to leave at this time. That's what this point is. Yeah. Yeah. That's perfect, Scar. Yeah. No worries. None of this is public. In fact, when I look in these scrims, I'll make sure not to put any of your info out there. No worries. I got you. Just like I said before, superior teams know when and if to disengage. And then, like I said, staggering is I don't know how to describe how bad staggering is. Let me see. It really skips to number 4, where with staggering, you're losing. What's it? time. Every map, every game has a time limit, and time is the most important resource. You can buy space, you can buy attention. You have ults. Ults is a resource. It helps to win team fights, and team fights help to win points. But the timing of it, everything, all the. Okay, yeah, no worries, Scar. I got you. I understand. I appreciate it. No worries. I got you covered. But staggering, you're not only extending the amount of time it takes to regroup, you're extending how much ult charge you're giving to the enemy by staying alive. And then that creates more ults. And those ults win more team fights easily. That prevents more grouping up, more winnable fights. And eventually, that's how... Those are the ways. It's like a sinking ship. It's like water coming onto a ship. But going back to mitigating an individual carry, everyone has access to the same heroes. Cooldowns function the same way. Every hero is broken in a certain dimension, as in good, like this is OP, and broken bad, as in certain situations a hero will not perform, or not perform optimally. And I'm talking over like hundreds of iterations. They may get a lucky break here and there, but by constantly recognizing where heroes are good and where heroes are bad, that is how you are able to tie all these together into team play. With team play, you can put heroes in certain situations that they're not optimal at. Using team play, you can path and protect to get to where your team is optimal, where your team has the advantage. And there's two ways you can do that. You can either hard focus the individual carry or destabilize the structure. Because if the structure is built to support this guy, then you take out the structure, they can't do as much. Alright. And then, like we were saying, teams that invest their resources the most, the best, usually win. But there's all sorts of resources. Attention is a resource. Because everyone has a field of view. Everyone can only look in one direction at a time. You can draw aggro. Space and time are a resource. The amount of space you take with shields and cooldowns, like Hamster's rolling ability. With resources, you have trades, and with trades, you have winners and losers. But yeah, ultimately, the most important resource is time. Everything goes back to how much time did I buy, how much time did I make up for, how much time did I deny the enemy. Another thing about about fundamental Overwatch is communications. And when I talk communications, I mean positive communications. And I've had the discussion with the teams in the past. It's not so much about, hyping people up or, having a positive attitude. That's important. I mean positive communications that do something. Like we're saying, resources are a limited commodity. Airspace is a resource. Airspace, when you're talking on the mic, is brain space. But the thing about it is there's more information in the map in a game than there is the time to communicate it and the ability to communicate it thoroughly enough. Because there's 12 people, 6 people on each team. All sorts of terrain, all sorts of abilities being thrown around. If you called every single one, you're not going to be able to hear it. It's going to be too crowded, too muddled. So really, you need to focus in positive communications on the essential information. And the way to think about it, you can sift out the non-essential information. I refer to this as the focus flag. It looks like a flag. This has been a good thing uh, in my life, in my professional work. There's really two categories. If something's bothering you, oh wait, let me change this. Important. There's two categories. If something's bothering you, can you do anything about it? And is it important? And this answers a lot of information, a lot of questions about where you put your effort, because effort's a resource. You can only care about so many things. But if there's nothing you can do about it, and if it's not important, then there's no reason to give it any, there's no reason to talk about it, there's no reason to think about it. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll talk about comms. Yeah. So really, you want to put all your eggs in this basket here. Things that you can change, and things that are important. But the things that aren't important, the past. Like, you can't change the past. The past has happened. You gotta think forward. Think the next step. Frustration noises, like, because airspace is brain space. Those things that you spend 10 seconds complaining, oh, that Widow, there's no way she should have hit that headshot. She's mouse and keyboard. There's nothing you can do about it. And odds are you could have mitigated it yourself anyways. But those 10 seconds of you talking about it are at an opportunity cost of 10 seconds of talking about ults, talking about what's the next step, talking about how do we avoid what happened. And also BM too. Being bad-mannered. Oh, that Widow sucks. That, trying to hype yourself up by putting them down. It's not needed. Because is it really the truth? You can count, I can't even count on my hands. So many times you say stuff like that and it comes out to bite you. And another thing about positive comms, anything that is said on the air, it has to imply an action. Like, calls imply action. There's multiple ways to think about it. Like, that goes to, call the essential information. Reaper, no Wraith. What's the implied action? The implied action is focus the Reaper. It may be more efficient to just say Reaper, no Wraith, focus Reaper. Or Reaper, no Wraith, he can die. Those imply action. But just saying Reaper, no Wraith, it leaves out. People spend time thinking airspace is brain space. Also, too, there's things like Reaper, no Wraith, but that was at choke and you're on point, and you don't have a hit scan. You don't have anyone that can do anything about that. So there's things like that there's no point in calling that if there's nothing you can do about it, if that makes sense. I'm sorry this has been dragging on. We'll get to the... Yeah, short-term memory, exactly. Yeah, go back to focusing on next. That's a good mindset. It's a how do you describe it? It's a very useful mindset. Like, if you always think, what do we got to do next? Go back to focusing on next. It's a good mantra it's a good way to think about the game. And why are, going back to fundamental Overwatch, so we talk communications. Everyone can see, everyone can hear, everyone can say what they see, what's going on. But what does that mean in terms of Overwatch? You can have the best of any of these, and if something else is deficient, then you can go into a losing team fight. And that's the way I describe that is through this. It's called the OODA loop. It's a process. You do it all the time. This is the human mind in a flow diagram. You observe, you look at things that catch your observation, you make a decision, you do something about it, and then you repeat again. This is how the mind works, this is how people work, and this is how teams should work. All these blue arrows are communication and actions. What I mean to drive to the point here is communication should drive this loop. Let's go back to that Reaper example. Reaper is 1. That puts you here. Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah, I agree. 100%, Scar. Yeah, when you have situations like that, trying to get the team to refocus, or if they're even boomed. You've seen that before, right? Your entire team's boomed. They lost a fight really badly. No one wants to say anything. It is the next step, and we'll go into that later here in the VOD review of talking about ult tracking. But it's a good technique. I agree. Reaper no Wraith. Okay. These two kind of merge. You're merging those together with by telling them Reaper no Wraith. You see it, you call it out. Everyone's looking at that, and then they decide: do I use hook? Do I wait for him to come out of Wraith? And then they do it. And it's just constant. But you want to think of this as a train, and you're constantly wanting to drive this train faster and faster and faster, to the point where it's like, to the point where you don't even have to say it. That you've seen it sometimes with like great teams that they've flown so much together, done this whatever process so many times that it's almost as if they're psychic, that they have like one mind. That's the OODA loop, and this is what you see in a team fight. If you think of this in terms of an Overwatch game team fight, the team observes something, Orange decides and does something about it. The way to defeat teams sometimes is to you mess with one of these factors. We'll see in some of the scrims tonight. Teams you fail to observe. You lose sight. That's one of the easiest ways to lose team fights, and we'll see it multiple times tonight. You'll see teams that they're just not able to either find the target or pick a target, and then they'll be like focusing, two separate ways. And once you focus two separate ways, then this loop stops working because one guy's going this way. He's constantly chasing this one person around. The team that goes this way is constantly chasing this person around. These circles aren't talking to each other, and whatnot. And this team fight, when we talk about this, we look at the sequence of a team fight. I break it down. This is the way I break it down. From the start, you have a poke and neutral phase. Like on Control Center, where this the very first team fight. No one has ults yet. That's what I consider the neutral phase. But it's also the poke, where what the team's decision is which way are we going? What's the team comp? And then that leads to the next step, the brawl phase. This is kind of the committed phase. All right, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna push on point, focus whoever's on point, and that's where cooldowns are exchanged, and it's kind of live or die. These two, brawl and ult, kind of merge. Once after that first team fight, teams get ults, so you may initiate a team fight with an ult, or you may brawl first, get people low, then pop an ult. But the ult phase, it's a definitive phase because the way teams plan the team fights out, they'll combo things. So you'll be like, all right, I'll pull, and then Doomfist does Meteor Strike, or anything. Nano Blade. Put Bubble on Barrage. It's planned out. That's why I label it as a separate phase. The final phase is cleanup and stagger. Going back to what I was saying before, every team fight's either winnable or losable, and there's a certain point that you get to where you figure that out. So when a team fight is winnable, it's cleanup. It's cleaning up in the most efficient manner possible. Or if it's losable, you can either cause a stagger or get efficiently back together as one, if that makes sense. I spent 45 minutes talking about fundamental Overwatch, and this is just breaking the surface. There's other things about fundamental Overwatch that build on these pillars. That I kept pushing this video off. That if I didn't make this video, I would never get to it. It would just never be done. It's just a work in progress. But does this make sense, at least, Scar? That these are the things that a team can easily punish. If they're aware of it, they can protect themselves by more time on the, more team fights, by easy team fights, by punishing a bad team. Or if they disrespect these things, that they get into that hopeless situation that, there's nothing we can do, or they get mentally boomed, or they get into situations that it's just lost team fight after team fight because of either ults and whatnot. Alright, sounds good. So we talked the sequence of the team fight, what the comms are needed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the first VOD is the effect team. So this shouldn't impact you. In fact, I think I'm only going to look at one team fight from each one map from each team's scrim. I think they're both going to be King's Row, not King's Row, Blizzard World. This might be a more shorter video than I intended, but it'll come on. What I'm going to do, let me see if I can get the tool up here. Oh, what I was going to say about what comms are needed. When I identify, these are essential information to continue this line of thought. In the poke neutral phase, you're talking recon. In the brawl phase, you're talking focus fire. You're committed. What's the fastest way to clean up is, killing things. And the fastest way to killing things is everyone shooting at the same thing. In the ult phase, you're talking ult tracking. And then in the cleanup stagger phase, we're talking like a person that's a head counter. You have the... Yeah. Definitely. It's all psychological. Yeah. You can look at this from like a robot scripting, step 1 recon, step 2 focus fire. But every team fight involves these aspects. And it's good to keep them motivated. The things I find in our scrims, specifically the honesty scrims, is that we do these occasionally. It's kind of like wearing a seatbelt, right? If you don't wear a seatbelt, you don't get into an accident every day. You'll drive to work, you'll drive back. You're not wearing a seatbelt, you're fine. It's the time that you're not wearing a seatbelt and you get into an accident that you get messed up. And that's one of the things I've found. So like ult tracking for all the teams in our team, if you don't ult track every fight, you get surprised. Yeah. And it's just a discipline. It's just every single team fight, you need to be ult tracking. Every single team fight, you need to be focus firing. Every single team fight, you need to do recon. You need to do initial recon. And every single team fight, you ought to have a head counter. This one here is something I've thought up of recently, just from our scrims that, you know, you come to a point in a team fight, right? Like we're in the brawl phase, and it's a weird number. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's good. It's all you got to do is just pin the tail on someone. There was none. And the problem with that is you don't whatchamacallit? We go back to the OODA loop, right? Every team fight, let's say you don't track the ults. You don't if you don't track the ults, you don't know what the enemy's plan is. So you see them set up a certain way. You don't know what their plan is. You don't know why they're set up that way. So you don't position yourself in an optimal way to counter that. And then you decide either at the wrong time or to do the wrong thing. And in the process that you're doing that action, you get surprised by an enemy ult. And if an enemy, cleans the team with one ult, that's amazing for them. That's one of the ways you get those efficiencies. You use only one ult, the minimum ult. You don't even have to win a team fight with an ult. And that gains the other ults that aren't online yet, and you just constantly cycle that back and forth. And that's how you get, we'll see here, on the first VOD review, a team get mentally boomed just by not ult tracking, by not doing recon. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a counter on the screen, and we're going to count each team fight. We're just going to watch team fight by team fight, and we're going to count the times that a team didn't do recon, like they're caught off guard, pretty much. The number of times the team's caught off guard, let me draw that out. Number... Oh, shoot. Off. Off guard. And it's just a straight tally. The first one is going to be from effect. It's their effect. It's their Blizzard World map. We're gonna count the number of times they're caught off guard. The number of team fights they went into with no ult tracking. Yeah. The number of team fights where they have no ult tracking. Let's see. What else? The number of team fights where you have the team chasing after two different people. Like, some are going for hero A, some are going for hero B. And then we'll count the number of staggers. Oops. English is fundamental too. And then staggers. Alright, let me see. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. It's not enough to do it half the time. It's like wearing a seatbelt. I think that's the analogy. That's the analogy. Like, you can wear your seatbelt half the time, but the time that you're not wearing your seatbelt and you get into an accident, you're shit out of luck. Let me see. So I use this. This is really helpful because I can go through. I uploaded the VOD to this thing, insights.gg. I watched it through first to find the beginning and end of each team fight, the beginning and end of each map. Alright. The beginning and end of each map, and yeah. And you're not on the you're not out on the field. Yeah, you're on impact too. So, but it's a good technique. So we'll see here. Oh shoot. Let me change one of these here real quick. How do I do a race? I need a bigger one, bigger eraser. Bigger eraser. Sorry. This one will do comms. I think they don't even get a good team fight in this one, anyways. Comms. This is the times where. Oh, you filled the first map on Nepal, right? Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it was you and BTB's the main tank for them too. Yeah. Good. Then it's working out then. So by comms, we're gonna tally the times where they don't have positive comms. The times where they're talking about something that's either not important or things that they can't change. Let me see. Man, I wish I could see the thing on the right here, but we'll go ahead and play it through.
Can we go double shield May Hanzo and like
How's the sound? Can you hear the background?
You can go.
Their comms.
Sid can be good for like if they run like consoles and high ground and stuff, but Ryan can be good to match the Ryan's aggression.
Yeah.
The Ryan is also we also like high burst pitch and freeze.
Where do you want me to go?
I'm gonna rest around.
Turn it a bit up. Okay.
Actually.
Yeah.
I feel like Arisa would be better.
Yeah.
And do you guys think we should play more Arisa?
See.
More.
How's that?
Yeah.
Is that better?
And more Lucio.
Yeah.
I think that's just okay. It's good. All right, so they're positive.
What I'm gonna do is that like we haven't been doing too much. I'm going to count down my speed when we should engage, right?
All right.
I'm going to do it for you guys, okay?
Yeah, we don't really take the other most out of it's just speed. It's a really big.
We're gonna use it to value this round, okay?
Yes, I agree with you.
See, they're starting off positive at least. They're talking about their plan.
I will.
You
Okay,
guys
so I guess we just see what they're running and decide from there what way we're gonna
yeah,
go.
we can definitely change combos if they're running.
All right. Here's the first team fight.
If they have like a heavy sniper comp, we do just like.
They're playing right side, I think. Yeah, top right. They do it top right.
Jump out somewhere.
I'm sorry for my shoddy camera work, so they're distracted.
No, they're behind us.
I'll play it through.
Ryan,
Go right.
Go play.
I'm trying to deny it. Yeah, we got it right. We deny it. I'm anti. We are all anti.
Diva, she's got Genji's.
So, I guess I can stop this here. It's not BMing. It's really enforcing what I've been talking about. By playing fundamental Overwatch, if you're checking your corners, like this wouldn't happen. Let me see. Also, too, you see already they lost their Moira on the first team fight, right? Let's go ahead and pull up the tally here. We'll go ahead put 1 strike here for caught off guard. And then here for stagger. They lost their Moira and their Rhine in the first team in the very beginning. And then they're here. They saw Anti, and they're pushing. They're pushing still. It would have been better to all right. They caught us off guard. Let's regroup again. So we'll start.
I mean, we lost our main support at the very beginning, and then we got antied.
Yeah, Anti was big. They doubled Anti.
So here you have we'll put a tick mark for comms.
Oh yeah, definitely.
No, definitely. They can use a lot.
Everyone here? Alright, I'm going to speed and we can get this torp. You guys ready? Let's group up. Alright, 3, 2, 1, speed.
Into him.
I walled him, bro.
Alright, so we had the what's it? Oh man, what was I gonna put? We should have had a stagger thing. I didn't. Did you hear them talk ults? They were talking about how their Genji was cracked and whatnot, but I mean it's okay. They didn't have a whatchamacallit. They didn't have ults. Well, we'll leave that blank. But what is it? Talking about how much they were staggered. We'll put a mark for comms there. Let's see if they're staggered here more.
Ryan's behind, but we're kind of dead here.
That's my. I mean, I wasn't with you guys, but he charged. The white wall was nowhere near where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
So we want to keep running while we're running?
Well, I don't know what you
They're just throwing bombs for nothing.
Yeah, because they can
They are
farm it
clowning
quickly.
on us.
The thing is though, they didn't ult track that bomb either. They didn't know it was coming. What's it? Diva bombs and hamster mines are one of the ults that there's no reason to ult track them. You want to ult track the Shatter or the Genji Nano Blade, but you don't track the Diva bomb because you're you're not gonna plan a team fight from the Diva bomb. But it's those ults like the Minefield and the Diva bombs that you lose those fights because you didn't know they were coming. So you're in a position where they use them and you get pressed, you get abused. So those are equally. I'll go ahead and put a thing there.
You guys don't understand. They're throwing it because they can. It's literally a throwaway ult for them because you guys are feeding it to them.
Yeah.
I have Dragon.
Alright, we're going to speed to his Diva.
So
Diva? Okay.
see the Rhine on the left.
Yeah.
She flew.
She has no flight. She has no flight. Go. She has no flight. Oh.
4 ult.
Alrighty. So you had was it that time they were talking about they're doing this to us because they don't respect us. There's no point in talking about that. You have in that time they didn't do ult tracking. They were caught off guard again. Oh. Yeah,
That's 4 ults they use. They use Bomb, they use Genji Nano, and
Alright.
They have Turbo and Dog.
yeah, that's all they have. Turbo, Dog.
We can. What's the word? We're gonna start with freaking pull.
Honey, are you AFK? Oh, never mind.
Well,
We got group up.
We'll try and pull Dragon early, okay?
Yeah. They have
Yeah,
no
we just
defensive
don't know
ult either.
I'm playing close.
Yeah, that means we can do it.
I'm on that
so
line.
they tracked ults.
Everyone.
They're focusing. They didn't track that ult.
Yeah, we lose that.
Oh. So they were caught off guard again. I kind of want to give it to them. They tried tracking. They counted all the ults. They thought they did. At least they're not staggering. They know they lost the team fight. The team fight before too. They didn't try to cap the point on their own. They're still positive at this point. But you gotta tell them check their corners. every ult is important though. It's not like every ult is as impactful. Every ult is important though. Let me see how I can diagram this. Like when we talk ult economy, right? Even those ults like Moira, BAP, Valk, they are important. If you think, let me just go ahead. Just delete these. Let's say, oh man, shoot. Insert text box. Yeah, you prepare for them, but it is important to call them out. Ryan, Zarya, oops, Genji, Pharah, Mercy, oops, Lucio. So we have a team, right, of yeah, it's good to be prepared, and that's a technique for ult tracking is being prepared for if you don't know if they have it, assuming they have it. One of the ways though to when we talk like ult economy, it's if you get to a state, well, it's not that you're in danger of it. It's not about like dying to coalescence. If you die to coalescence, that's great. Like I would rather die in a fight with 5 people dying to only coalescence, if more of a coalescence by herself, because that's not how ult economy should work. You shouldn't use those ults offensively, as in I'm gonna kill you with coalescence. You want to cycle. You want to cycle ults. Like you want to get to a point where one team fight you use Rhine Shatter. Let's see. You definitely want to combo like Zarya and Pharah, like Grav and Barrage. To get to that, you want to use Mercy's Valk. When I talk the support ults, right? Whatchamacallit? You have 2 types of support ultimates. You have essentially like the difference between Mercy and Lucio. Lucio, we know, is the defensive ultimate. You save that for when the enemy, like, you rinse and wash them 3 team fights. Eventually they'll have ults, and Lucio will be there to counter it. It's a direct counter. They pop ults, you pop this in defense, you live and survive. Or you can get aggressive with this. The Mercy one, Mercy, Moira, Brig, and BAP. Those can clutch team fights that are really close, that you need an extra boost. A more efficient way. Yeah. It's an end goal, and it's what you want to get to. Like, the state you want to get is being like the enemy team that's facing Effect right now. You just want to get to a point where you're just using a minimum number of ults. Effect didn't really have to use all those ults. That's why they're throwing them. But in a contest, you can edge like skill. Like I was saying before earlier, you can edge that by having great ult economy, because you're constantly putting the enemy team in a position where they feel stuck. Because first they're gonna get Rhine Shattered. Mercy's gonna, Valk Genji Blade the next fight, and because the team's Valked, because the team's putting in damage, cleaning up all that damage. Zarya's gonna have grab, Pharah's gonna have barrage. You use those, and then you have the Lucio. You can save that for when the enemy finally gets a chance to use their ults, or you can use it offensively and just keep pressing them and keep cycling them. The support, the Mercy ult, I call it a Temple ultimate. I think Jane refers to it like that as well. I'm not exactly sure the terminology, but if you think of like like a temple, like religion, it like lifts you up. It raises your spirits, but it's not gonna save you from like dying. Like you wouldn't want to pop Mercy Valk to counter grab barrage. It's not a defensive ultimate, but it lets your team go aggressive. It can combo specifically with like Genji, or like Moira can do Moira Grav if you wanted to. But by letting your team go aggressive, it lets them get their ults faster. You can stabilize, or you can use it to create this cycle. And it's important to know the cycle because everything is on the every team fights a 66. The enemy's doing the exact same thing. So you have to recognize, hey, they started the team fight over here with like they double ulted over here. So it goes into the higher levels of play where like you recognize, hey, they double ulted over here. That means, this team fight, they're going to be winded. We just got to kite the Genji or, play spread here. And if you can disrupt this wheel, that's how you regain the initiative back. That's how you regain, if you have a bad first team fight, that's one of the ways you regain is understanding where these support ultimates are and how they're driving the rest of the team. Does that make sense? Yeah, exactly. Baiting high noon with Valk, that's okay. That's one of those traits that, it may be worth it, but you don't want to. It's risky. You don't want to actually get sniped too, while in Valk. You really want to look at where do you get the most value with these ultimates. And not just most value, but most value consistently. Like if it's like gambling, like if you're gambling $100, that you're not gonna get shot out of Valk. Or how much can you turn that $100 if you know the next team fights you'll get these. But you've seen the McCree buff too, right? Like the oh, okay. Oh, nice. Yeah, I see. So you pop it to get back to your team. You've seen the new McCree ult, right? It's he's not locked in his aim when he deadies anymore. So a Genji can this is McCree, this is Genji. Genji can dash behind him. He can instantly turn around and instantly kill him. So his McCree ult's much more deadly now. I think that's what they're calling him. Was it Beefy McCree, or there's some nickname they gave the new McCree on the PTR. He's so tanky, like Tank Cree. Yeah, but this is like when you're talking like efficiency, like cycling ults like this. It's so important to think about it in this way. Like, popping multiple ults in a team fight, you're not gonna lose that team fight. Hopefully you don't lose that team fight. Yeah, Thick Cree, that's what it is, Thick Cree, yeah. Hopefully you don't pop ults in, hopefully you don't lose a team fight you pop multiple ults into. Jane has a famous video about that. A team popped 5 of their ultimates, still lost the team fight. The enemy team didn't even pop any ults, and they didn't even pop the ult on the payload, on King's Road Defense. So they popped all those ults, didn't win, backed up, not contesting the payload, still died. It's the one of the worst. It's the worst example. I wish I could play it, but we're running short on time. But you do. That's why you want to call ults. Is the big picture. Let's see where we at. Here we are. How does that look? Alrighty. Sorry for that. So they pop the Torb ult here. We can back up here a little bit. They pop Torb ult. It's clean up in spawn.
I don't know. I don't think we should talk about DPS really. And like, I don't know. Like,
Come here, no. Come here, come here. He's fucking low. Kill the Torb.
Is there a backline? He's
Run,
samurai.
okay, did I raise? The rest is so big.
I think I'd call that a stagger. Like, he shattered. He got the Rhine. What's it? Yeah, he got the Rhine, but at like what cost? Yeah. Let me see.
Nice.
Dead.
Yeah.
Push.
All right.
Push. Just
So
seed.
this
No,
is the
you
second.
can't. There's
I call this the second team fight. So it looks like they're picking up steam.
no legitimate reason why she would
I don't think they
fight.
checked their corners, but
I'm slept.
so you have
Alright, you guys kept shooting at their.
you have the Moira over
Oh,
here,
fuck. How
The-
are we letting a Genji just
the
come?
Lucio over here.
And you
You
saw
guys
yourself.
all shot at him.
I'm sorry if I was talking over the comms, but what things you saw? You saw that focus fire again. These guys here are staggered. They saw their Moira and Lucio die. They saw their Moira and Lucio die. They didn't ult track coming into that fight. I guess we can mark it up as comms. They were split. You had the Moira Lucio trying to kill someone over here. They died. Then you had the Orisa over here trying to kill something. They died. There was a breakdown in positive comms afterwards where they were talking about, why are we doing this and why was the healers over here and Orisa by herself? It's a valid question, but...
I have a question. Why were our Orisa and our supports on two different sides of the...
And this is the stagger here.
I mean,
You
I
guys
don't know
said,
why
like,
you
you
would.
guys were saying push, like go straight into point. We're going left side. It looked like the majority of people were there. We didn't need the.
See, that's what I meant. Coalescence doesn't counter Blade.
I don't know. I mean,
We
that's
need to
just
pop
something.
our ults. We need to pop our
Yeah, I
ults.
know.
I'm
Any
not-
person, any person. Alright. let's
We have
circle.
been holding these like 4 ults for the past 3 minutes. Just
Didn't ult track.
Okay, never mind. He's not. Can you even touch? No.
What? Come on, dude.
Alright. Like I don't even see the point.
I don't even see the point.
Oh, sorry.
That's put that towards comms. I think we can call that off guard as well. They just
Like I'm just gonna be completely honest. I don't see the point. Like it's one thing to get rolled by a team and learn. This is just us getting trashed on and them running meme comps.
The only thing you guys are doing wrong is you're not checking corners. Otherwise, you guys are doing fine. Check your corners. You guys are pushing through. You're skipping the neutral space. Check your corners.
True.
Man, I got charged.
Okay. What do you want for DPS other than May?
Get Hanzo again.
Hanzo again?
I say we play. We need to play hyper aggressive.
If I remember right, I've seen this. It's weird. I've seen this multiple times.
Huh?
But I've seen Impact play here and Effect play here. I think they lose in the first team fight. But
Mercy. Oh yeah, and then
Just, I don't really know what's so funny, man.
Because they actually, I told you, they're my friend. They're literally just talking to me later during the middle of the rounds.
just so you guys know, you are all playing all four maps. Like, I don't care if you're getting shit on all 4 maps. You're playing all 4 maps. You're taking this seriously.
They're playing 6.
They want
You're
to play
playing
6,
all the
but at this
maps. Like,
point,
there's no rage quitting.
No, it's rich.
no, most definitely.
If
It's just
DG far,
we have to play this every single
or-
one to the end.
If you rage quit about this, you're just there. You shouldn't take competitive scene. Like,
Brick,
there are some things we can learn about this. If we're getting rolled by a tour,
comes.
Good.
play line of sight. Play out of line of sight. Remember.
Yeah,
Genji's
right,
going
right,
right
right,
down
right.
on me. Genji's
Right,
down on me.
right,
so
right,
far.
right,
No, on the right.
Actually, D.Va's feeding in the back.
So, you hear several comms issues, right? Like, you have the, what's it called? It's a tough situation because that's Ryan's job. That's Ike's job is to contest a point. But you have these guys over here dealing with the Genji and the Pharah. I mean, pharmacies dealing with the Genji, and then you have everyone else turning around trying to deal with that.
I need help.
Take it together, please.
I'm gonna go first. No. Resin.
I'm in-tide.
Then how did okay?
Well, that fight there, we're just playing together. No. The thing is, we shouldn't have focused the Ryan because we call the Ryan right, but then our Cynic gets taken from the back.
Let's see.
I did say that.
Let me see. What's the next map? Hanamura. Well, I mean, we don't have to. I'm sorry. I thought there was more. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, exactly. Play it out. There's one scrim. I don't know if you heard about it. That affected that. They're on Horizon Lunar Colony. They thought they won it. Avery just throws his controller, and he's like celebrating on the payload on the first point. There's like 5 seconds left. Here comes the enemy Tracer and the Hanzo, and it's a 2v3, and they clutched it because Avery couldn't find his controller. He's stuck there. Him and 2 supports. Yeah, the fight is never over. They could have full held that. Yeah, but they were put in that situation too, right? Like, they didn't have to, their win condition didn't have to be to hold 1 tick on first to draw. Because they had, 4 times they were caught off guard. They didn't know what was going on. There were 4 times that, they didn't track ults. There were 3 times where they were staggered. Either the fight was objectively lost, and it would have been better to get back, regroup, but they threw ults out of spawn, sat on the point longer than they needed to be. And then the other thing too, like the times where they broke comms, where it's like airspace is brain space. So if one person says something that's like really either offensive, bad mannered, or whatnot, one time, like, people are hearing it for that time, and then they're thinking about it. So you take about like 10 seconds, for example. Like, I say something like fuck. You're thinking about that for 10 seconds. Like, why is he saying fuck? He's just playing bad. He was bad positioned. All these things. You think, what's it? There's a scientific study that's like you have 48 separate thoughts a minute. So, like, was it 10? If each thought is like 10 seconds here, that's 50 seconds per person. 5 times 10 seconds, 50 seconds for 6 people. That's 1/4 of the map you spent not thinking of the map, not thinking of like what you need to be doing next. This is kind of like the thesis. If I had a thesis of, fundamental Overwatch, is how easy it is to lose a team fight, to lose a game if you don't do the fundamentals, checking your corners, alt tracking every team fight, playing each team fight as if it's 6, having a positive comms mentality of, only important things are said, then that's how you get to this point. It has nothing to do. In fact, fundamental Overwatch comes before the higher level stuff. Like, meta doesn't matter. Actually, that's what we'll go to next here. Meta doesn't matter. What we'll see in the let me erase this one here. Meta doesn't matter if you don't have fundamental understanding of Overwatch. I might as well just clear it. Shoot. Sorry for the delay. What was it? I guess this one we'll use instead of whatever that was, awareness, off guard. That's what it was. We'll do focus. The number of times the team is shooting in different areas. Alt. The number of times the team's caught off guard by an enemy ult. Gosh. Oops. Comms. The number of times, unimportant comms happens. Oh man, I should have prepped this. The team, did you play in this?
Sorry, that.
Did you play in this game, Scar? If you did, I won't play it. I just want to let me just skip to that one part here. This one map. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me see if it was if you were here in Kings Row or if you were swapped out. If not, I won't. Oh, Blizzard World. Okay, I'm sorry, Scar. I won't play it then. Let me see. No worries, Scar. I'll respect you. I should ask the team if they wanted any of their scrims reviewed publicly, anyways. But it's more just to drive a point. There's a fundamental level of Overwatch that matters more than the meta, because the meta is always changing, anyways. There's more to this than what I've talked about before, too. Understanding the synergies of the different types of comps, brawl, dive, bunker, how to play those. There's the different levels of decision, the individual level, the team level. You can play an off meta or even a comp that you think is a counter. If you feel like you're being countered, there's a way you can play that's you can either be, if you can't win, you can at least gain value. And that's another topic here too, about value that I haven't gone into. But what's it? There's so many levels to fundamental Overwatch that need to be mastered, because it really is meta proof. Like these things are important. They were important in dive. They're important in goats. They're important in double shield meta. It doesn't change the way you play. It changes the way you think about the game. It changes the way you make decisions. Is what I mean for fundamental Overwatch. It's really, you're pulling all your resources to maximizing time. You're either on attack and you're maximizing the amount of push you can get, or you're on defense and you're trying to play spread. I mean, not spread, but delaying. Being as efficient as possible and trying to deny the enemy push. There's a whole segment on that too, on the different types of maps, the win conditions. But I guess I guess I'll save it for another time. Did what I say make sense, Scar? Let me see. Yeah. I really do appreciate you joining in, Scar. It's something that Overwatch means a lot to me. I put a lot of time into the team, a lot of time into Overwatch itself, and you all have too. And I want to see you guys succeed. And I guess really it's not really that hard too. The stuff I'm talking about, just ult tracking every team fight, checking your corners always, taking your time, coming in with a plan. And just always being aware of, I guess Overwatch is like it's like a sinking ship, right? Like a ship is sinking and it's taking on water. You can apply that to ultimates. Constantly feeding ultimates. You can make the ship sink faster by doing a lot of extra damage you don't need to be by staggering. You can make the ship sink faster by by not focusing targets. If you're not focusing targets, that means they're not dying. That means you're doing a lot of damage, but nothing's dying, which feeds those support ultimates, the defensive ultimates, all the key ultimates. Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. And it's something. I really did want to review the Impact Scrim. I did make a review. I posted the link in the VOD Spam channel in the Discord. You can take a look at it if you want. I made notes on the side, which pretty much subs what we're doing here now anyways. I would be pretty much just reading off the side anyways, so it's good we're cutting it here. But I did make those notes, and you can check those out there. But that was just an example too that a good team seems unbeatable. Not because they're individually skilled. I guess that's one way I should describe this. What's it? This one. That I guess team play is more important than skill. I guess that's the way I should do it. Here. Team play is skill. Like, team play is more important than skill. Like, if you think the enemy team is dogging you down, like, beating you guys down, it's not because they're better than you. You guys play each other on the ladder all the time. You guys say, how trash all these people are. It's not that they're, better skill-wise. There's the team play aspect. And the team play aspect, like, playing sports, like, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Especially if that whole, it's both, like, drilled, they're efficient. Like, they've done this OODA loop so many times that they know the right answer before you even done it. Before you've made a mistake, they know you're going to make a mistake. They know the optimal answer and response to it. So they've been through that loop so many times, they're at that point. And they become, ultimately, like, so efficient. And that's how you got to be. And when you're efficient, like, when you look at, Yeah. Yeah, I don't care for comp too. It's a waste of time because like all these things are important, but you can't spend like an hour and a half in a comp game, explaining to your team how to play. Like everyone comes in with their own philosophy on how to play, and then they mentally impose that on other people, right? Like we're two strangers that met. We're essentially on the internet, right? And like I have this way of thinking about Overwatch. You have this way of thinking about Overwatch. We've all came to know Overwatch through pretty much trial and error. So it's not like there's scientific backing or a study or a book or a standard. A standard, yeah. But still, in my mind, I'm holding you to my standard, and I'm making judgments about you, about my standard. And how do you get a team to play like that? It's toxic, but not in our organization. Not in organized competitive tournaments. And so, it's good. You guys are doing great. I'm really proud of you. So it's really just tying it all home, bringing it home, getting all the small things efficient, tied down straight, and then we can capitalize on the things that man, I keep wanting to call him Yoshi, but it's Mishu. What Coach Mishu is gonna bring to us, like all those meta strats. But the key takeaway is that you can't have a meta without mastering the fundamentals. And essentially, those bigger ideas like metas, rotations, the whole idea about those with rotations is you're trying to force the enemy to making one of these mistakes. Like you can't come to a fight and make the mistakes and the enemy doesn't have to do anything. It's all about that chess game of like, I'm gonna make you do this, and that's gonna make you do this, and now I got you, and then that's the higher level. That's like championship level Overwatch play. But it takes focus, it takes good communications, and it takes a fundamental understanding of the game. That's all. Well, I'm yours. I'm yours, Scar. Anything else you want to talk about? Oh shoot! I'm sorry. I'm drawing on the screen. I have this Stream Deck. This is what I was talking about before. I'm sorry. I'm noob. I am noob at streaming. I was looking at a screen. I was typing on a screen. But this is what I was saying before. That team play will always be able to counter skill. Like, yeah, the entire team may be skilled, but if someone's popping off, there's a way you can play that's economic, that's, like, if you think about it, that will soft counter him in ways. Yeah. 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 No, yeah. In all honesty, meta is an opinion. Like, there is nothing that says something is meta. Because like I was saying before, like, every hero plays the exact same way. Every hero is broken in a certain dimension, and every hero is, like, OP in a certain dimension. Whittle will always click headshots, Barrage is always a thing. Whatchamacallit? The reason why a meta exists is that you have the hero balance in the game that creates OP characters, and then when those OP characters are incorporated into comps, these comps are OP because people tend to mirror each other, because mirroring each other is safe. If you mirror something that's hard, then your cooldowns are their cooldowns are your cooldowns. So going back to like the chess game, what's it called? Like turn-based and initiative and punishing. Like you can get the advantage over someone like Orisa play. Orisa throw her shield down. What I do is I walk through that shield and throw mine down, because she's now without a shield. I walk in front of it, and Punisher for it. So that's how the meta works. If you mirror each other, you stabilize. But when you play meta versus off meta, now your tracking, your ult tracking is like way wonky. You're playing weird strats, like Ryan Zarya going to the high ground on Blizzard World to flush out a Widow. Weird things like that. Like you're starting to think, you're starting to get out of your comfort zone. But you think, teams in competitive, everyone wants to be the best, but do people want to do what it takes to be the best? Do they want to find all these weird situations and problem solve these? No, they want to play standard, like Revolutionary War soldiers, line up on the battlefield, walk through the choke. Someone wins, someone loses. And it's confirmation bias too. Oh, you won because it was skilled. No, it's really just luck. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I love the team. We have a great mix. All right. Well, Scar, I think I'm gonna call it here for the night. I appreciate hanging out with you. I really do. It's been fun. Hopefully we can do this more often, and more often as a team. All right. Alrighty. I'll catch you later then. You have a good night.